Hello and welcome to the big debate from the Monwabisi Recreation Centre in Langa, Cape Town. I'm Sikim Kabadeli. Cape Town's poo protest brought to national attention the lack of water and sanitation endured by some residents in this city. Without decent sanitation, we cannot live with dignity. And without water to drink and wash, we cannot live. But the problem is not limited to Cape Town. According to a recent study by the presidency, as many as 2 in 5 South Africans lack adequate sanitation. Millions also live with a very limited water supply. So on today's big debate, we ask, why do so many of our fellow citizens live without dignity, and are the poo protests justified? With me to discuss this are Johnny de Lange, Chairperson of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation. Ernest Sonnenberg is Cape Town Mayoral Committee member responsible for utility services. Phumeza Mlungwana is a member of the Social Justice Coalition, an activist organization based in Khayelitsha. Jackie Dugard is founder of the Socio-Economic Rights Institute. And Kwatelani Boloho is with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. In our audience here in Cape Town, we have residents from across the city, including families who are living with the bucket system and others who benefit from free basic water provided by the city. We also have students, government officials, engineers and water specialists, and members of the public who are concerned about water and sanitation. Welcome to you all. And you can also make your voice heard in the debate. Send us your comments by SMS. You can tweet us or post on our Facebook page. We'll make sure that your comments reach the panelists who are here today. Now, before we start our debate, take a look at this.
When you've got to go, you've got to go. And most of us do so without much thought. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and drag yourself to the toilet with your eyes closed. But for those living in the 11% of South African households without sanitation services, it can be a matter of life and death. At 48 years old, Nolithando Mbibi of Greenpoint in Khayelitsha refuses to go to the toilet alone. During the day, her husband accompanies her to a bush in a nearby field. At night, they and their 4-year-old grandchild use a bucket which they keep inside their small shack. Undignified and unhygienic living conditions in the shack are the price Nolithando pays for her safety. In October 2012, she was relieving herself in a bush when she was grabbed by a man from the area.
October last year,
When possible, Nolithando relies on a neighbor's toilet who lives close to the bush. Every time she needs to go, she has to weigh up the risks. Over 1 in 4 South Africans use sanitation services which do not meet basic standards. In the France informal settlement, residents still use the bucket system. Our constitution includes the values of human dignity, equality and human rights. But Nomakorin Tenqakavu, who is unemployed and disabled, says her quality of life is no different from the apartheid years.
13 years now, what's now? No much in a glade toilet, it's numbers park with 10 because the other one balabek abanazi toilet. Toilet for China Pinyang was getting bed to power like a petroleum in bed. Siang and a pencil. Nabandona Kabe, Jalapapa, James Zagolongo. The
city of Cape Town says that it's upgrading services as rapidly as possible, but that it is important to design its programs carefully so as not to waste resources. Also, it's important to do proper research and planning, especially in informal settlements. The city has introduced portable flush toilets, also known as porta potties, as an affordable and speedy interim solution.
At the end of the day, we need to also ascertain whether those people are sort of fixed within those specific areas. You understand? You could be finding a lot of people mulling around within an area, operating within an area, but they may not be residents of that specific area. So one has to ensure that your statistics are accurate or as close to accurate as possible, so that when you effect the services, that we know that the area is going to be effectively serviced.
But some residents believe the city's upgrading programs, including the porta potties, are too little too late. They have turned to protest.
Into ebangela into abangaba senze laa nto sicinga ukuthi yindlela esinothi sincedwe ngayo, khawuleze uba sincedwe. Yeyona ndlela sicinga fani uba singathi sikhawulezelwe sincedwe ngayo laa ndlela, ngolu hlobo senza ngayo sijule ituwa phayana ezindleleni. Because ke iminyaka mininzi sihleli apha emabhakethini. I-13 years ayontwana.
The poo protests have angered many across the country. Yet, despite the fact that some of the protest leaders have been charged with criminal offences, residents like Noma Corinte have a tough message for the mayor of Cape Town, Patricia de Lille.
Noba yile nto kamhlawumbi ke singabantu abamnyama ndiyazi ndibe kanjani, because ke ngoba ke yena kanohlala nekaka endlini. Uyabo? Kanohlala nekaka endlini. Baqhankqalaziswa yiloo nto kaloku because abafuni uhlala nethoyilethi endlini.
Ernest Sonnenberg, Cape Town Mayoral Committee member responsible for utility services. Now imagine it, right? Bucket of human excrement in your home. These are homes that have 1 or 2 rooms in them. Have you ever experienced that for a day, a week, a month, a year?
Well, I've been fortunate that I have not experienced it, but one must also put it in the context of the growing trend of the informal settlements within the city of Cape Town. One must understand that in the last 10 years, the city has grown by 30%. And obviously, whilst the city has grown, our provision of sanitation has also grown. Remember that in the city of Cape Town, in 2006, there was only approximately 10,000 toilets. We now make provision for about 40,000 toilets, so we've grown. But this is also a problem nationally, just not in the city of Cape Town.
Absolutely. We understand you have challenges. We understand it's a national problem. We're going to deal with the others. We're talking about Cape Town right now. This is a rich city. Why don't you just take a pile of cash and say to Cape Townians, we're going to give every single one of you a flushing, waterborne toilet, no matter which side of the mountain you live on.
Let's also understand that for this current financial year, the city is spending 521 million rand on water and sanitation services in informal settlements specifically. But you must also understand that 82% of the city's informal settlements are on unsuitable land, where the water table is actually bursting through the ground. And therefore, in those circumstances, we cannot put in full flush toilets, but we also provide other means of sanitation. So we have your chemical toilets, and we have the container toilets that are being provided. It's not the ideal, but from the city side, we're clearly trying.
All right. Phumeza Mlungwana, you're with the Social Justice Coalition. He has a point, right? If they put pipes in areas which are informal settlements that are temporary, we're going to call it a waste. There are areas where it's simply impossible to put those pipes in there. And we can't have every single person living in Constantia, for example, with 5 flush toilets in their houses, can we?
I think we need to, like when you started, you spoke about this as a human rights issue, and we should treat it in that sense. And secondly, we've had the claims, these we understand, there are constraints, there is legislation that prevents probably the city to actually provide services in informal settlements. But then, if that's the case, what is the plan are we doing for informal settlement? Does that mean the people who are currently in France, in Greenpoint, in BM, in RR, are going to be there for the next 30 years? And I think until we start thinking differently about the approach that we're taking on delivering the services, then we're not going to get anywhere. Because at the end of the day, these are people's lives we're talking about. Our generation, who are at 20 this year, that means their kids in the next generation are going to live in the same environment. And we cannot accept that.
Jani Delanga, she talks about legislation. You're a lawmaker, you're an ANC member of parliament. You've been in the ANC government for how many years now, roughly?
Since we started, 94.
Right, okay, so targets were set. Your government set some targets. They said, we are going to address the backlogs by 2001. Then it moved to 2010. Then it moved to 2014. We now understand it's now 2016. Is there any intention to resolve this?
I think I would like to start the same way as Pumize started, and to say that we must be clear about this issue. The access to water and to sanitation is an issue of human rights. In the end of the day, it's government's responsibility to provide those services, and government has the onus to justify when we don't do so. Of course, we have to set targets and so on. We have to try and meet these targets, and I don't think government has always met our targets that we've set. In some
But why is it a moving target?
Well, it's a moving target because of urbanization, and of course because of the legacy of our past.
But urbanization is not going to change. Are you saying perpetually we're going to have this target moving because people are moving into urban areas?
It's going to move all the time, but I think it's government's responsibility, whether it's Cape Town or any other city, to sit down with people and map out the future. We don't plan for the future, we don't look at how these things, and therefore we don't engage communities to tell them when can they expect a result to their problem.
All right. Jackie Dugard, you're with the Socio-Economic Rights Institute. Johnny's making all the right noises, is saying all the right things, and in fact, since 1994, progress has been made. More and more people are living today with dignity.
Yes, I think that's right. And I think that when it comes to water services, the government actually should be commended for making great strides. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. And a huge problem with water and with sanitation is the failure to regulate. And this thing about chasing targets has its problems. Yes, you want so many taps laid out and the infrastructure laid out. But this creates problems of quality. That's a huge percentage of those sanitation services that have been rolled out are dysfunctional, non-functioning. There's hardly any maintenance spent by municipalities. And that's a serious thing. These are problems of planning and these are problems of coordination. These things need to be addressed immediately. And with regards to sanitation, I'm afraid we've begun to go backwards. And one of the big reasons for this is the move from sanitation, from water affairs to human settlements.
Okay. Well, Kwatilani, you're with the Department of Cooperative Governance. Your department actually gives out large sums of the money to the municipalities to meet these targets and actually to address the backlogs. Are you regulating how the money is spent? Is it being spent on actual water and sanitation, or does it go to paying salary?
We do regulate in terms of how funds are supposed to be spent, and we use the Division of Revenue Act. And it's very clear in terms of where funds are not being spent properly, what needs to be done, and where there are huge underspending, it also indicates what needs to be done. If somebody is underspending, you need to stop the money. We're currently working with National Treasury to try to also look at these unspent grants. We are going to get all the municipalities in one place so that we can deal with this matter.
All right. Attorney Ehrenreich, are you satisfied with what's being said?
Absolutely not. I think the point that's made strongly is that people can't live in a circumstance where they don't have dignified sanitation and proper toilets. Whether it's for informal settlements or backyarders, that clearly has to be a priority. And part of doing that is to make sure that there are clear plans that are put in place in consultation with people. To try and impose bad sanitation solutions into people's homes with single-room dwellings is unacceptable. We have money in this country. Instead of spending funds on arms and other things, we should spend it on people's primary needs. Sanitation is clearly one of those things, and that's what we need to do. But the big problem is we have, and it's not only in the city of Cape Town, but in the city of Cape Town is where we have a chronic inability to find solutions that are acceptable to people because people are not being consulted. We must start there, then we must get the funding sorted out, and then we must roll out the problem.
But they are the porta-poos. Isn't that a solution?
It's clearly not a solution that's acceptable to people because the porta-poos are in people's homes. We don't want people to relieve themselves in their homes in one-room environment. That is totally unacceptable. We can find engineering solutions that can solve the question about high water tables or all of those other things. We can find there are technical solutions to that. There's not the political will. The political will starts by talking to people, consulting with them, and then putting the money in place to ensure that that is rolled out.
Ernest? Why are you putting these porta potties, I think they're called, in people's homes?
All the portable toilets. Let me first start off that the City of Cape Town started with a program of eradicating the buckets that are being used. And there is also other people who would want, for safety reasons, to have a unit like that in their structure. So when they have to, at some point, relieve themselves at 2 o'clock at night, And they don't want to make use of the other facilities that we are providing, the other toilets, the chemical toilets, the container toilets. They can do so at that point in time. So it is not to replace a toilet or a full flush toilet completely.
Okay, we're going to hear what the residents have to say a little bit later in the program about that one. Now, after the break, we're going to hear from the leaders of the poo protests. You're watching The Big Debate. And welcome back to The Big Debate. We're discussing water and sanitation. Now, earlier this year, a group of activists hit the headlines in Cape Town when they were seen dumping containers of human feces in public places around the city. One of the so-called poo protesters is Andy Lilili. He's here with us today. Poo protests. Now, come on. This is not how you change government policy. Oh, you really think this is going to work?
Obviously, I know you might have that kind of perception, but where we live, we wanted to expose how our people, African people and colored community in Cape Town are subjected to. And as individuals, as activists, we cannot tolerate to walk right across the feces in our streets in Khayelitsha and across Cape Town. We are saying that is totally unaccepted, and we are saying that is unhygienic. If it is unhygienic for people who live in Cape Town, if it is also unhygienic for people in airport, it is also unhygienic for us as people who live in informal settlements.
One wrong, though. Two wrongs don't make a right.
I think
it's a criminal activity that
we
you're
wanted
engaging
to
in.
expose this to the authorities, that our people are living with feces for 24 hours. And it can never be.
If you wanted to expose this to the authorities, why go to the airport? Go to them.
Yes, we went to legislature, and later on we went to airport to expose not only here in Cape Town, but internationally. It must be known that our people here are treated so badly by a racist government.
But you're playing politics.
No,
You're playing politics. Let's be fair. There are other municipalities run by the ANC all over the country. You could have gone to the Northwest, you could have gone to the Eastern Cape, KZN, bucket systems there, right? Will you tell us that the poo protests are going to move into ANC municipalities as well?
No, I don't think we are playing any politics. I live in those informal settlements, so I don't play any politics. In fact, for instance, now I'm just a suspended member of the ANC, so you cannot say I'm playing politics, whereas I'm talking to the issues affecting the black people in Cape Town.
Show of hands from everybody in the audience. How many of you think that the so-called poo protests are justified? Put up your hand. Interesting. That's a lot of people, Ernest.
I think the point that you've made, that this is not just only in Cape Town. In actual fact, in a lot of other cities, it's even worse. But one must understand also, and I'm putting it to Andile Lile, that his first suspension was not because of the poo protest, but his first suspension was of other charges, where the city actually took a decision to ask the provincial minister to remove him from council. So, in actual fact, his poo protest was having a second bite at the cherry of becoming or remaining a councillor and trying to get communities to show the ANC that he's got community support. Because subsequently, when the 8 members that was with him was identified, the poo protest then subsided.
Let me get a sense from the community then. Let me start with you, Amelika, if you can stand up for me. Do you agree with these protests? Do you think that it's a good thing?
Lento yenziwayo kisolwaketuwa apa ezitratweni ndiyavumelana nayo. Ngoba nam apho ndihlala khona eFrance eside B dinamabhakethi. Amabhakethi lawo singawafuniyo pha eklaleni eFrance eside B. Ndicinga aba bantu bagibisela ituwa estratweni. Bacinga fana bayinoba indlela abazawuthi balungiselelwe ngayo. Ngoba kudala safika phaya eFrance eside B from 1998. Sina 13 years sihlala phaya. Kudala sireporta kubantu abaphambili. Senziwe izithembiso sithenjiswe zingade ziphumelele izithembiso.
Okay. Johnny DeLange, they've been living in that particular place since 1998, and she says they've been asking, they've been promised and promised and promised, and yet nothing happens. I mean, what do you say to her, someone who's been living like that since 1998?
Well, look, I think that the right to protest is constitutionally entrenched, and in this instance, I think the community are quite right to protest. Of course, there's a difference between the right to protest and the manner in which one protests. We can say to people, look, we don't think you should do it in that manner, and that's fine, and that's what the ANC has said. But the fact of the matter is, what we should be doing now is not fighting about which way we protest. We should be engaging those communities, exactly what I said earlier, to say to them, this is what our future plans are, this is what we have in mind, these are the things we're going to do. If we don't do that, then tomorrow someone else will come and protest, and justifiably so. The same. And they may use other methods, even worse methods next time. I can't think what will be worse, but okay, it can be. Yeah. So I really think that that's my problem.
But you've been lucky, though, as the ANC. You've dodged a bullet. You've dodged maybe a bucket of excrement. They're not being thrown in ANC-run municipalities.
No, I don't take any pleasure in the fact that the DA or the ANC or whoever else is. I really think that the debate in the newspapers and the media is completely wrong around this issue. Why don't they go into those communities and look how people live? Why doesn't the newspapers and TVs go and show why it is that people took such extreme measures to protest? Why haven't they done so?
You'll see it. You'll see it on the big debate.
I tell you why. Because most of us that find it offensive are living very comfortably.
You've asked a simple question that Mayco member, have he ever experienced in his life the use of portable flush toilet? There's a matter of human right. South African Human Rights Commission, the independent institution here in South Africa, rule against the issue of giving people that type of toilet. The mayor of the city of Cape Town is on record. She went to the Barcelona community informal settlement. By entering to that community, she put her mask on her face. What does that tell you? In just 1 minute in her lifetime, she can't take up to the smell. Who must do that? Is this us?
I saw you put your hand up when I asked the question about whether these protests are justified.
I think protest is justified. I think throwing feces is not necessarily the nicest thing to do, but it's not very nice living in these circumstances. And I think it is a form of peaceful protest. Peaceful protest is supported by the Constitution, and I think that the reality is that communities have shown extraordinary patience. It's not acceptable in an upper middle income country that people have to tolerate these conditions. And what is clear and what is very disturbing is that this isn't about money. There is enough money. It will only cost about 50 billion rand to resolve all of the sanitation problems in South Africa. That's from the government's own analysis. That amount of money is available. The issue is about governance. And it's about governance, whether it's a DA or an ANC municipality. It's about all levels. It's about coordination, and it's about holding people accountable. Protest is now the only way that people in South Africa can hold officials accountable, whether they're DA or ANC. That is alarming, and we should all be concerned, but I fully support people's right to protest.
And when we return, we're going to talk to residents who are threatening to pull out the water meters being installed by the city of Cape Town. This is The Big Debate. And welcome back to The Big Debate on water and sanitation. Now, according to the United Nations, every human needs between 20 to 50 litres of water per day for drinking, cooking and cleaning. In South Africa, everyone is entitled to 25 litres of free basic water per day. Here in Cape Town, the city has installed special water meters in some poorer areas, which measures the free water and cuts the supply off after the limit is reached. Take a look at this.
Themba Mgaza of Vrygrond near Muizenberg gets water from a communal tap in his yard. He shares 350 litres per day of free water with his family of 4 and 6 tenant families. That's 2 bathtubs of water for over 24 people to drink, wash, cook and clean. The water is controlled by a special meter known as a water management device. At 4 a.m. each day, the tap is due to be switched on. But by 6 a.m., the water is often finished. Some days, Themba says, there is no water at all.
bafike bafaka le nto batshintsha leyana endala but zabasixelela uba isebenza njani uzobona njani la 6 kiloliters xa iphelile but thina sive sibone ngamanzi sekengekho qha.
Some Vrygrond residents like Godfrey Tromp have resisted the new water meters, saying they are a violation of people's rights.
They must come and change it. If not, then we, as a community, we're going to change it ourselves.
According to Godfrey, the meters only cut off water to poorer residents.
I mean, the city don't work for us as Vrygrond people. The city work for them in Marina de Gama and there in Cape Town. You understand what I'm saying?
And Godfrey is here with us today. Godfrey, you don't like these meters. Why?
Yes, I hate the meters actually. Not me alone, but most of the people in the community, the majority actually.
But you're getting 25 litres per person per day of free basic water from these meters.
Ma'am, to tell you the truth, that 25 litres is a drop in the ocean for us in the community. We are not used to this 25 litres and we will never be used to this 25 litres. You understand? And we want our normal water because I want to make it clear today to the councillors. They must remember, this water belongs to us. You understand? And the pipes and the labor belongs to them. You understand? They find us with that water and they're going to leave us with that water.
All right.
Thank you.
In fact, we did an experiment and measured exactly what 25 litres per person per day means. It means 2.5 of these buckets. Now, Johnny Delanga, this was not enough for even the shower that I had this morning. Now, you have families who are, for example, in the insert, you heard about Temba, who lives with his family, and then he has back rooms, so that's 24 people rather living together. The 25 litres actually refers to an 8-person household.
Well, look, whatever decision we make, whether we give it 2 tons of water or not, I mean, someone has to pay for it. So I think you have to look at it in terms of the big problem we have in the country. If 51 million people, we need to provide water. So what free water we can provide is clearly we'll have to start at a certain level and you have to keep moving it upwards. I really think that communities that would resist the installation of water meters is completely wrong. In the end of the day, all of us have. I have a water meter. Every single home has a water meter. Now, I think where we are failing is households that are rich. We should be charging, when they go beyond a certain amount of water, we should be charging double for that water, which we're not doing. And I think that will start subsidizing some and increasing the 25 at the bottom.
But those water meters actually cut water off once the 25 litres per person per day is actually reached. Those of us who have water meters in our homes don't have that. After I've reached my free limit, it carries on anyway, and I'm charged for that. Why are we cutting people off?
No, well, I think that's completely wrong. I'm not aware of that. I would say that you pay, you get your 25 free, and then the water meter should be able to measure how much more than that you take, and you should be able to pay for that.
Ernest, these water meters, we are told, Temba in that insert told us they cut him off.
Perhaps let me just first of all start. The city is currently providing 350 litres per unit per day. Now, one must understand that all new installations, whether you live in Constantia or where you live, has the water management device in it. So it is not an issue of just in informal settlements. It is everywhere.
And is everybody cut off?
Well, let me just come. What happens is that
let him finish. Let him finish.
It's an issue of affordability. Everyone can go to the municipality and say that I can afford more than the 350 litres. Please put me on a higher amount. But the issue is that we also need to realize that we are in a water scarce region, and therefore the city has to manage its water.
But are you not targeting the wrong people? I mean, we have agriculture, which uses a whole lot of water. We have industry, which uses a whole lot of water. We have the rich people who fill their pools and they water their gardens.
If a person are in the arrears with its water, what we say is before we write off your arrears, we give you the option of the installation of the water management device so that we can have a change in behavior. It's about teaching people that this is 350 litres, and if I'm going to wash close on Friday. I need to conserve so that I can build up reserves.
Promeza, what do you make of that?
We know that we don't have enough water, but the fact that a lot of the taps you see, they're always leaking, there are no repairs, I think it speaks directly to the issue of maintenance, that it's not like there's not money or there's no water or there's no nothing. It's engagement and the fact that we're not doing enough for informal settlement.
If I may go to Lily's first statement there, Lily was elected by us as the members of the community. And we don't care the council fired him or whatever, but Lily is a born fighter. He's fighting for our rights. And he was called by the community and Loiso. And this may remember, this government of Western Cape is only care about the white people, the white rich people. And they are taking the issues on the racist way. Because of, if you can check, the issue of water, the shortage of water, it's in black and colored people. The issue of porta, it's in black and colored people. Why the son of Van Tonder and the Van der Merwe are not using this? The porta that we use.
Because of apartheid.
No.
We make the same excuses everywhere else, don't we?
The city of Cape Town is upgrading from the apartheid system into nowadays. Because of they changed the color of the bucket to be white. You see, the color of the bucket was black, so they make the color of porta to white because of what they are trying to do. They want us to think the porta is better than the bucket, but they are upgrading the same system of apartheid.
Councillor Sonnenberg and his council has had to be taken by the scruff of their necks, to speak to people in Khayelitsha. If we didn't pressure them, let me give you a simple example. The service delivery agreements, which we had to get out of them by law, they are required to have those things on the web, and they're meant to have them in every library. They've never proactively made it available. The Department of Local Government needs to tell us which other municipalities make it available, because they don't. It's not just the city of Cape Town. And I would say that none of our councillors take seriously what happens with budgets. I want to ask Councillor Sonnenberg, how much money is spent on outsourcing sanitation, and how much money is spent in my area, the city of Cape Town, in the CBD? Why aren't I paying more for my water than someone in Khayelitsha?
Okay, let me get those questions answered. I'm going to start with you, Kwatilani, and then I want you to respond to Zaki. Local government, you are at the coalface.
I mean, following the work that we did about the understanding the state of local government, we came with a number of initiatives to also look at the issues that is rising with regard to sharing what municipalities are doing and what municipalities are going to do. If you go to also Treasury at National, they publish those also service delivery implementation plans. And also we do check them on a regular basis in terms of whether municipalities are implementing according to these plans that they agreed with the people before.
Ernest, very briefly, because we are out of time, just respond very quickly
just
to
simply to say that we table a budget, which is line items. The budget sometimes is this big, but we do table it at council. And that information is freely available to whoever wants to acquire that information.
Our sector, or the water sector specifically, is stratified. And the more we have layers of governance, the more the cost of water increases. And the more subsidy cannot reach the poor. So we are having layers, and those layers are not, it does not facilitate the process of provision of water, it complicates it. Why? Because I have Dua to get approval, then we have Kokta to get approval, then we have the district municipality sometimes interfere, then we have the water utility board who is in control of the bulk water. These layers of mistakes has to be rectified in order for us to be able to provide water and sanitation.
And on top of all of those different line function departments, whether it be DWA, Water Affairs or Human Settlements, there's also education involved in water and sanitation provision, also health. On top of that, you've also got obviously national, provincial and local. So it becomes almost impossible. And I think on costing, it becomes a really, really difficult and problematic thing. It's very clear, and the World Health Organization states this, that for every dollar you spend on sanitation, you make $9 in terms of human development and performance. So in other words, it's not a costs issue. In fact, you're going to gain. Yeah. You're going to gain from it. But what's the problem? The problem is the first line function department that is affected by waterborne illnesses is health. Health is, to a large extent, not a local government issue. So it's not the local government budget, to a large extent, that's affected. Yeah. So they don't care. In effect, if you're disconnecting people's water, complete disconnection, and I feel I have to say that it's not the city of Cape Town that came up with prepayment water meters. I fought for 5 years against them in Johannesburg and Soweto against an ANC government which had prepaid water meters that disconnect 100%. This is a serious problem. Because of all of these governance and fragmentation issues, then you are right. What happens is poor people pay. And to the gentleman and everyone over there, of course it's race, but it's primarily class. It is class. It is poor people that are paying across the country because of all these inefficiencies.
When we return, we get the final word from our panel and our audience. You're watching The Big Debate. And welcome back to The Big Debate. Can we provide enough water and sanitation for all South Africans so that everyone can live with dignity? What do you think?
Water is life. We've got to start with that and saying without water there will be no life. Plants needed, animals needed, more humans needed as well. And these blue top meters, as we call them, is cutting off people's life.
What I would like to say, the Memorial Committee have infringed the rights of the Constitution. Section 27, we right to health. Section 9, we equality. Section 10, we human dignity.
We are like a toilet paper in Vrygrond because we are really poor in Vrygrond. They make us worse poor. It's not that we don't want to pay the water. We want to pay the water. How can you wash with a bucket? Family of 6. Okay. But what happens? Officials vote. Vote. We are just like a toilet paper. We use the toilet paper after that. You don't look after us. So it's what happened in why you buy porta for into a useless. Why a toilet? You can't buy a plastic shoe. You must buy a quality for using for long.
Many of the causes of this poor service deliveries, because we can sweep the tendencies of apartheid under the carpet. But I want to say that land here is poorly used. Even the land that is allocated, there is nothing that stops the city of Cape Town to construct it into, say, story buildings and share out to blacks, say, in flats. Because even the RDP houses are not sustainable. So, if the houses are not properly constructed, it is difficult to perfect sanitation services.
One topic that hasn't been talked about at all is who's going to maintain those pipes, who's going to fix it. And I think one thing that has to be said, there is a huge skills gap right now. People need to be educated. They need to be brought into the sector with vocational skills as well as at university level.
This government of South Africa has failed to create a dialogue between its own people just to understand its own problems. And secondly, we cannot pay for basic water. Yes. We cannot pay for water. Thank you.
The ANC itself has also done this thing in Northern Province, all over South Africa. And now the DA also It feels so I'm traumatized. The fact that also these white people, sorry for saying that, they are talking on behalf of us with our issues. Yes. Although it's them who put us in this kind of situation. Please, people, we are human. We are not animals. We like you. We've got blood like you. In your areas, you've got 12 taps. You just sprinkle the flowers. And we are struggling, us, just to make food. And we are the slaves of you. How are we going to work for you guys? Please, don't do this to us.
Ubawa lona, nalona, ndizawucela Monday, bakhupha abantu babo, babheke kumko TR, bayebona olasizi le-education liyabantwana okokuba amanzi xa bethi ngoku mabekenziwe le nto bazazivasa ngantoni izandla xa bephuma etoilet niyobabona xa befolile uyalibona elinye ibhakethi ele linesiciko ne kufuneka umntana afeyisane nokwakunqola kusiza ebusweni bakhe ndibuye ndize kulo wamanzi hayi uyandibulala lo wamanzi kuba into engaka ya ndizayithini na mna ndifuna ngomvulo beyile enzela uba athathe ezanto afake itoilet efleshwayo ngokukhawuleza ndicela imvisiswano kuloo ndawo.
And welcome back to the big debate. Let's hear a last word from our panel here in Langa in Cape Town.
I think the issues that were raised here, I think, are very crucial. And from what we're doing at national, it's more than just a regulation. We are also working towards supporting our municipalities to be able to address the issues. We have just established a program called Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent that has deployed now already 77 engineers and about 25 engineering companies, helping municipalities on a number of the issues that have been raised here. And on the city side, we have a program that is managed by National Treasury called the City Support Program. It's also helping the cities to deal with the urban settlement issues.
I think we need to acknowledge that sanitation is a very strange creature that is prone to political influence or political blame game whatsoever. And I think until all residents, all communities that are affected by sanitation challenges should organize themselves across race, across class, and across the different challenges. And I think if we don't organize, we stand a risk of getting this country not to develop, but getting this country to revolve around the problems. And I say that because I'm from Ekhayelitsha and I've been with the SJC, and a lot of the advocacy work that we've done has never been around politics, has never been around who to blame who, but it has always been around the everyday challenges that people continue to have and how much capacity and knowledge that you can give to residents can do so much for them. From this day onwards, if we are the ones who are suffering from sanitation challenges, we should take ownership of our problems, educate ourselves, and organize ourselves irrespective of what political party we're going to challenge and make our leaders accountable.
I think it's shameful that in a country like South Africa, these problems persist, and it's clearly not related primarily to money, and that is a very devastating reality. We're not a poor country. If we were, we could understand it. We are an upper middle income country, and therefore it has to be resolved. It's not about money. It's very clear the money is in the system, and I don't just mean the money is in defense. No, the money is there where it should be. It's just not being spent, and it's not being spent correctly, and that needs to be redressed immediately.
Obviously, the issues that we've discussed around access to water and proper sanitation is an issue that's close to people. It is so because it's a human right, and people should feel strongly about it. They should organize, as Pumeza has said, around these issues, and they should tackle their authorities, whether it's ANC or DA, where they do not provide those services. It is true that a lot of the issues that have been raised here, which are problematic in government. I mean, the fragmentation of state power between 3 levels, where you have at least 300 or more institutions that have to provide water. Clearly, there are huge challenges there. It's correct that Jackie has said that when sanitation was moved from water to human settlements, it's clearly that services have gone backwards because there was no capacity in human services. So for years it just lay there. And these things we have to admit. But also we must be careful. A lot of the problems we have are man-made. And there's no particular reason, whether it's a DA government or to not sit down with people and discuss the problems, look at the possible solutions, and then look at the funding of the matter. If you don't do it with those communities, firstly, like what is done with the meters, you go into the community, then people start breaking the meters down. So you have to do it with the communities, whether you like it or not. You cannot impose these solutions, but more importantly, there is no silver bullet. So you have to let communities understand that there's a program where they will see results after a certain time, and they must buy into that program. Now that is governance. It's got nothing to do with laws, and it's got nothing to do with funding and so on. There we are failing in some respects, and there we cannot find excuses.
This problem is not unique to Cape Town. In many respects, the city of Cape Town, in terms of the provision, are far ahead of other cities. But we're having it because we had a particular time where there was service delivery protest around the provision of sanitation. Now, there's a number of reasons for the service delivery protest, whether it's political, but we must acknowledge that the provision of sanitation is something that is close to the heart of every resident. And yes, we will get nothing right in communities if we don't engage those communities. And we have done so. Perhaps not to the extent that communities expect us to do it, and that is something that we'll have to work on. But then also communities, and this is what we're doing also with the SDC, where we're saying, you speak on behalf of communities, so please also approach us and then tell us what the issues is so that we have a better understanding of some of the issues. But at the same time, let us also explain to you what the constraints is of government. And sometimes it's not money. Money is not always the reason why we cannot do things. I've previously said that in Cape Town, 82% of our informal settlements are unsuitable land. So you have to couple that also with a housing program. So you cannot just look at sanitation, but you have to look at the housing program so that you also unlock opportunities in settlements itself for the provision of sanitation whilst you're moving other people. So let us take the politics out of this debate of sanitation so that we can come together and say, this is, as a government, where we want to go, and this is our targets, so that we can achieve those targets. But as long as the politics is in there, you'll get to a community, and the community is already being rallied up not to allow you in.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there. To be part of the big debate, don't forget to like our page on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. In South Africa, two worlds live side by side. Some of us take for granted the running water in our taps, but for millions of our fellow citizens, drinking, washing, and going to the toilet are daily struggles. Are we on track to bring those two South Africas together? Will there be more poo protests before that happens? You decide. Thank you for watching The Big Debate. Goodbye.